All right, so I'm Mark Burr from TrustRadius, and we're talking to people who have used TrustRadius to buy business software to learn more about the ups and downs of that buying experience. So I'm just looking for your honest feedback about your usage of TrustRadius, as well as the software purchasing process in general.
Okay, sounds good.
Perfect. So to kick this off, can you briefly describe your role in your company?
Yes, I'm the director of marketing. We're a small membership association for financial planners. So we have, our team is now two. It's been three, back down to two people in the marketing department, and we're, kind of in charge of setting the strategy for the entire association and also doing, right. Like we can't just have these what we think are good ideas and have someone else go implement them. We have good ideas. Well, we better get to work and get them implemented ourselves because we don't have anyone to hand things off to. We run a number of meetings each year, and then the keeping and getting new members is the name of the game. So we're busy doing that, all while trying to provide value for our current members and implement new benefits and things like that. So
Perfect, makes sense. And then, how long have you been using TrustRadius for software purchasing decisions?
So I've been using it for purchasing just in the couple of years I've been back here at FPA where I'm at now. I used it for just kind of looking at what might be out there before, and actually used it more to write either recommendations or reviews of things I had used in the past prior to that. And then when I transitioned into this position about 2 years ago, and the first order of business was to switch out our email automation platform, a marketing automation platform. So it was one of the places that I knew was a valuable resource to go to. But prior to that, I really used it mostly to actually write reviews of software that I had been familiar with in the past.
Awesome. Well, we definitely appreciate that. As you're aware through the buying process, those reviews are very handy. So
yeah, absolutely.
Appreciate that. What's the typical size in referring to that buying activity you just mentioned? What was the size of the buying committee when making that purchase decision? Was it just you or multiple people involved?
I guess there were three of us that were involved in all the meetings, involved in all the demos and everything. There were other people that we gathered input from, but we didn't want to have too many cooks in the kitchen. So it was really three of us, one from someone from the leadership team, someone from our technology team, and then myself from marketing, that narrowed it down to the five or so that we wanted to go get, put out an RFP for and do demos with, and then kept narrowing it down from there. There were three of us.
Awesome. And then do you remember which pages on the site you were using, or what features were most important to you in using it and making that decisions?
The main thing, it was an easy search for the platforms that we were looking into. The biggest value to me, I guess, was on those particular pages. I pulled one up here too, because quite honestly, it's been a while because I'm not in the market for anything, so I hadn't been back to the site in a little bit.
No worries.
But so I would simply just type them in, the companies I was researching or looking into and deciding between into the search, and then go through their kind of company pages, I guess, if you will. I'm not sure what the right terminology is. And then I don't know, the compare tool that I'm looking at now, I honestly don't know if it was there when I was looking at it. If it was, I equate it to like Best Buy. If you're looking at TVs, you can plug 4 or 5 into a box and hit compare, and it'll show you all the key bells and whistles for each of them. I can't recall if it was there at the time 2 years ago, but I was messing around with it here just before the call today, and that would be helpful if I either could find it back then or if it was available back then.
Perfect. Yeah, it did exist. It has gone a drastic redesign, so it could look drastically different if you did use it at the time. But okay, that helps. What's important to you when using our site, regardless of how you use it? Like, what are you looking for? Is it depth of content? Do you look at the scores, or what is it that really helps you in making that decision?
I looked at a couple of things. the scores are helpful just to see where things balance out amongst all the different users that are ranking these, because most of them that I was looking into were pretty either highly used or there was a lot of feedback on them. So the scores meant something as opposed to if there was only, a couple hundred reviews or less. But the biggest thing I looked at, because of the situation I'm in with the organization, were like-minded, like company reviews. If a Fortune 500 company is reviewing it, it's not quite as helpful to me as if someone with a staff of 20 and a marketing department of 5 or less. So I was really trying to go through the review and look at people that were in a similar situation and companies that were in a similar situation to me, to get the most value out of those reviews. Because like I said, there's, if someone at Apple is reviewing it, that what they're using it for is not nearly what I'm going to be using it for. I know that as a nonprofit with 2 people on staff, we're not going to be using all the bells and whistles of HubSpot. That's in this case, that's who we narrowed it down to and ended up purchasing was HubSpot for marketing automation. We're just scratching the surface, even 2 years in, on functionality and the capabilities we can use. We've taken things to an entirely new level from where we were, but we're hardly using it to its fullest. So I wanted to try to find people that had similar comments, or if nothing else, had similar team sizes or employee sizes at their organization, to kind of be a little bit more apples to apples.
Makes sense. Aside from TrustRadius in that process, what other sources of information do you use to help guide that purchase decision?
I mean, the biggest things I used were the organization sites themselves. I mean, quite honestly, one of the things that I didn't use on a site like TrustRadius is pricing or demos. Like, I want to go straight to the source for that because it may be outdated, or we get a nonprofit rate. If I put my price up there, someone may think, oh, I could get that, and it's not even close because we are in kind of the nonprofit tiering of pricing. So I definitely use the company sites and contact with the sales reps or whoever that they had reach out to us, SDRs and such, was probably my number one source, because I wanted to make sure I got the most up-to-date and relevant pricing.
Awesome. And then as far as the review content itself, do you view that to be trustworthy, or what's your thought on the content we do provide?
I do. I mean, I think on a site like this is a little bit more trustworthy than if you were just going to Google reviews, because people will go to, Google reviews, easy to go to, easy to get to. You don't necessarily have to log in. You can just throw a review up there. So if you're pissed off about something, it's easy to, to spend a quick minute doing a review. So this one, I lend a little bit more relevance and trust to a site like this. There may be others. I mean, I'm only familiar with a few because I try not to go to, too many. And this one I've interacted with, like I said, as a reviewer. So I figured, hopefully the people are taking the time that I did in certain cases when I was reviewing things to put information there that's helpful, and being honest too, transparent. I mean, don't just because your name's attached to it doesn't mean you have to give it glowing reviews if it didn't suit your needs.
Awesome. And then putting TrustRadius aside, are there any things you saw in this cycle or others, good or bad, that you like or don't like as far as making a purchase decision, or things that you see the vendors doing well or doing poorly in that process?
I mean, I think this is probably typical, and I'm sure you get it a lot, but the difference between the vendors that were okay with what we wanted and our timeline versus theirs. Like, I'm not going to buy it on the 30th or 31st of the month just because you need to hit your number for the month or the quarter or whatever. And clearly there's pressure there from some of them, and it comes off and it's easy. And maybe because I have experience in an organization that did that and operated like that, so I was able to, I guess it bothers me. And also knowing that, we are a nonprofit, we're not going to have all these add-ons, and we're not going to talk in 6 months after purchase to do the next add-on and building block and tech stack and all that. I mean, it was a big expenditure for us to even add something like this. So that was, that's important to where we're at as a nonprofit, to be able to work with someone who knows the limitations and knows that, they're not going to make their number and make their circle of excellence based off selling to us probably, but still giving us the level of service that, that a nonprofit deserves, even though they're not going to, break the bank with us.
Totally. Yeah, makes sense. With this HubSpot purchase as an example, how influential would you say TrustRadius was in making that decision? It sounds like you might have gone through a demo or other things that helped solidify that, but what level of influence would you give to TrustRadius in that process for making that decision?
I mean, it was influential. I wouldn't, and probably wouldn't. I mean, I guess I could confidently say I wouldn't be purchasing something of that magnitude just based on a review site, whether it was TrustRadius or someone else, without going and doing a demo and getting some customization and some case studies and things that were relevant to to our industry and profession. But in terms of looking at comments and reviews, it definitely was relevant. So I mean, I don't know if the numbers, like, maybe it was 25% of the deal, and our customized demos with the other things with the other companies were 75. I guess might be a fair number, maybe 80-20, because again, knowing that they could show me, I guess maybe that's the big the big factor, differentiator, is they could show me what it does, not tell me like I'm reading on a review site.
Got it. And it sounds like regardless, though, there's still some third-party validation you need outside of that vendor to help you feel confident in that decision, would you say?
Yeah, I would say so. Especially, like I said, if I can look through and kind of filter through some of the reviews. I mean, I'm looking at HubSpot. There's over 2,000 of them, so I'm not going to read them all. But if I could kind of quickly scan and find a handful that are of similar companies, then those are even more useful.
Makes sense.
That would be one thing. Like if there's a way, and I don't know if you get similar feedback, but if there was a way to kind of sort, and maybe there is, like I said, I'm not a super user by any means, but if there's a way to sort by kind of company size or industry or what have you of people using products, it would have been helpful for me. I don't know if I might be in the minority, but it definitely would have been helpful for me.
Yep, makes sense. It is there. It may not be easy to find. I've heard that actually from others. So noted, and we'll pass that along to the team. And kind of on that line, are there any other examples where TrustRadius has room for improvement to help that buying process, or features that you feel like could be improved, or things you'd like to see added at all?
I mean, that's the big one, because even going back, like I said, the compare is great. So like I said, either I couldn't find it or it wasn't quite as great, a couple of years ago. So improvements it's better now than it was when I did use it. So it's getting better. That was the one thing, even going back now, that would be helpful for me. But otherwise, it looks it's very useful, easy to use. But that was the one thing that kind of stood out, I guess.
Okay, perfect. Well, I think that's the core of what I was looking for. I guess any other feedback, either on TrustRadius or about software buying in general, that you'd like to add, or anything you think I missed?
I don't think so. I mean, no one, I don't think, likes buying software, right? I mean, it's kind of a pain. This is no joke. Literally, just got a call from someone who I'm in talks with on a transactional email module. And they called me as we were on the phone wanting an update, because I haven't given them an update in a timely manner for their sales reps. So that part can be frustrating. And, there's a lot more of the whole, you connect with someone on LinkedIn and immediately they immediately try to sell you something. So a little frustrating, but we don't have a lot of.
It sounds like a little disdain for sales in a couple of the comments.
Yeah,
which is again a shared sentiment. So
yeah. Although again, like I have made a point to call out to when people are great, right? Like if if the end of the month passes and they don't, contact me over the weekend just because it's the 30th of the month, and they're not trying to upsell, and they're totally fine with our timetable, knowing that we move slow and everything. There were those too, and I try to make a point to let them and their teams know that it's much appreciated, and hopefully that comes back to them in a positive way too, because that's a sticky point for me working with sales. So when you get the other end of it, it's very much appreciated.
Perfect. Well, again, I appreciate your time today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Mark. Happy to help whenever I can. Just being in marketing, I know how frustrating it can be to get feedback and have people answer surveys.